now.
Yeah.
But then we'll put you away for a moment. Not totally away.
Yeah.
So
I can wheel off to the
Brian,
Yeah.
fun fact: Laura's husband is also named Ben, and another fellow Bravo Sierra. Their last name is Stoller. So
All right. Total BS
It
coming
is
at you
BS.
live.
You should have him on.
It's complete BS.
Is it? Remind me, Laura. Is it bourbon or Scotch or both that he's really a connoisseur of?
Kind of all of it.
Yeah.
A little bit of everything.
So he's like into it, Brian. I mean, like into it, which is another reason why I like him so much.
Hey, my partner got me a gift. I have a travel microphone now. It actually has a cord.
Nice.
What is
That's
that?
cute.
It's the world's tiniest microphone.
It's like a little Letterman style.
Yeah, exactly. It's supposedly real. It has, the cords.
Could you like just put that in your mouth and then see how it sounds? And
it's for one of my cats, and just like put the cat next to me there. Yeah. So. Scotty Scott, is that a different name? I thought we had a Scott from Arizona, and the name doesn't ring a bell.
I'm doing these kind of man on the street interviews for this one project that I'm working on. And it's kind of a public art thing, so it's kind of fun. But we were actually talking about, like, I'm really trying to figure out if I can get one of those Bob Barker microphones.
Oh yeah,
for man on the street interviews.
As the kids would know it, the Drew Carey microphone.
Yeah, as the kids would say. Yeah. The Price is Right. I was so close to being on it, you guys.
We know. Laura doesn't know. Yeah, Laura doesn't know.
I was so close. And no, I'm just. This is 25 years ago, and I'm still working through.
Still processing.
So, Brian, if we do execute this trip out west, I'm going to make it my life's mission to get you on The Price is Right.
It's too late, man. I was there Barker era. Like I'm not like actually we had to go get a new tire today, and while we were there, they were playing the television that The Price is Right on, and I was like, "What is this?" Like, it's not even. It's all. It looks like a different studio too.
Yeah.
It definitely looks like a studio that no one ever smoked a ton of cigarettes in or whatever. But anyway, hey, maybe that's the best I can get.
Yeah.
Whoa, Alpha Juliet.
Yeah.
The Price is Right, man. See,
thanks,
awesome.
Alpha Juliet. Now he's really gonna.
Does that mean that there's a small chance that Alpha Juliet's father is Bob Barker?
Yeah, there's a pretty decent chance, actually.
Funny you should mention that. No, I do know.
Scott, thanks. It's nice to. Yeah. I was wondering what I heard from you on, so that's great.
Very good. Wow. Alpha Juliet's mom's been on several things. Looks like.
Yeah.
Joker's wild.
A chance.
Isn't that the No Whammies one?
No, I don't think.
Oh wait,
so.
no, that was
Gene Rayburn. And they pull the wheel, and it's almost like a slot machine type thing. I thought.
Yeah, that was a good one.
None of this is going to the doobly-doo. This is way too complicated.
Please, no, because we're gonna have to change the name of the podcast from the midlife to the old life or something.
That
like
is
that.
Great on Wikipedia. It shows Joker's Wild TV series, and the image on the left is Ted's team. So kind of on the nose there. I like that.
Press Your Luck was No Whammies. That's right.
Oh yeah,
and had the little devil or whatever.
Yeah, little demons.
Yeah.
Laura, I'm sorry. You said you volunteered and you're here. So
yeah, you're stuck now.
I'm in it.
You chose this. Yeah.
In it to win it.
Yeah. All right, let's do it.
Let's do it.
Welcome to the Midlife Pilot Podcast. We are glad you're with us. What is it like to become a pilot in your 40s and 50s? The challenges are unique for those of us in midlife, but so are the rewards. Hosts Ben, Brian, and Ted talk learning to fly, growing as pilots, and the joy of flying to destinations. The purpose of the podcast is not to teach, but to share knowledge and experiences of being a midlife pilot. Join the Midlife Pilot community and listen in every week. We are not CFIs or particularly intelligent, so if you want to learn how to fly, talk to anyone else other than the hosts of a podcast. Even this intro was too challenging for us, and we used a robot to do it. Okay, checklists are complete. Let's get the show started.
Hello, and welcome to episode 77 of the Midlife Pilot Podcast, where we talk all things flying and aviation midlife. My name's Ben. I am a commercially certificated pilot with an instrument rating, flying a Cessna 182 we like to call the Beast, here in the Atlanta metropolitan area. And if you needed more details, we call it Mayretta, is where I fly out of. Tonight, as always, we have my friend Brian, a private pilot, tailwheel endorsed pilot in Nashville, which is the home of the Bachelorette Super Charlie, flying a Cherokee 180 named Lucy. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Ben. I'm glad to see you. Every time I see you, I just feel like my life is improving. So thank you. Thank you for
That could be the nicest thing anybody said to me all year. So thank you. Also joining us tonight, our friend Ted, sport pilot extraordinaire, out of Portlandia, the left coast, flying a flight design CTLS we like to call the Egg. Hello, Ted.
Hey, Ben, how are you?
I am wonderful, thank you.
Mayretta. That's new.
Mayretta. That's what the locals call it. Kind of like in Tennessee, you have Lebanon.
Oh,
yeah.
It's Marietta, technically. I think our guest, Laura, would probably refer to it as Marietta. But if you're born south of Atlanta, it's Mayretta. So, speaking of which, I would like to introduce our guest. We'll get to the housekeeping in a minute, but joining us tonight is Laura. And we'll get into the topic in a minute, but she is, she's right in the middle of what we want to talk about tonight, which is starting your aviation career. You're in the is it possible stage, if you will. But before we get into it, I'd like to let everybody know we broadcast live on YouTube, usually every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. The live chat is open. We've got a very active crowd tonight. Saw some new folks and the normal crew as well. The audio podcast is at iTunes, Spotify, and wherever fine podcasts are found. Please give us a subscribe or a follow, whichever your podcast does. And even more, if you could, please give us a 5-star review. We would love to read that on the air. We also love getting your feedback and your suggestions. So you can send us an email or voicemail at our website, midlifepilotpodcast.com. You can also find a link to become a Patreon supporter. We've got a few new Patreons this week. Or I'm sorry, we've got one new Patreon supporter in the Hershey Bar level. We have Uwe, our first German Patreon supporter, which we were really excited about.
definitely.
Yeah, we have about, there's 3 of us, so we have 4 pronunciations of Uwe.
I'll speak a little Spanish, but I don't know the German, and I'd love to learn it maybe one day. But that's
It's
okay.
very difficult language. I really listen. In my mid 30s, I decided I'm going to take German. And you want to talk about midlife pilot brain not working, right? I mean, try learning German even in your 30s. My brain, I realized, is useless. The order of the sentences and everything is so. They will wait until the last word of the sentence sometimes is the most important word that gives you the context for everything else that has been said. It's so unnatural to me in terms of structure. And me having some German heritage, I just thought, you know what? My primordial self will come through, and this is just, I'm going to have this kind of mystical connection to my sort of German Jewish roots and everything. And I skated out with a D in the second semester and quit, and that was it.
Yeah. I've built the desire after watching. It's been on Instagram and Facebook where one person will say a word in English, then the next person will say it in Spanish, and then Italian, and then the German comes last, and everybody else, it sounds so nice and pretty, and then the last, when you say the German, it just sounds so violent. That actually endears me to that language a little bit more and makes me want to learn it just a little bit more.
Very good.
I'm still working on English, so we'll see how that goes. Yeah.
So, Ted, been flying at all?
Yeah, I have. I got out, hit some new airports yesterday, and I had an experience I wanted to share. And I went back to see if I talked about it on the pod, and I didn't, but I talked about it in Discord. In early March, I went up to an airport, and I shared a picture of this beautiful Cessna 140 tail dragger. It was bright aluminum, shiny aluminum, and it was great. We had a little conversation on Discord about it, and my friend and I had been looking at it at this airport, and we'd seen the pilot. He'd walked past, and he came back, and he was going to pre-flight to leave, and he broke one of the latches up on the cowling on the front. So he asked if I had any tools or anything, and so I gave him a small roll of gaffer tape, and he left a message on one of my videos and let me know that he got home after that. So that was great. And that was the last I thought about that. That's been almost 3 months. So this is some ATC audio from yesterday's flight.
503 Tango, 10,100, time here 10,500. Flight design 503 Tango, Seattle Center, Salem altimeter 3014. 3014, 503 Tango. There's 03 Tango. You happen to be the pilot that saved my bacon at the Dalles with the gaffer's tape? It is, yeah. Very good. Thanks for that day, and good to see you out there flying. It was nice to see you too.
I was so stunned. That was just one of those totally random moments. So
it's so good.
My whole aviation as a subculture thing. It's all the same world. This guy is a center controller 150 miles up the road, and he recognizes. I mean, the egg is unique by the model, but it's enough that he remembered that, and that's really cool.
And that is why you record every single flight, because if I had heard that in my plane and hadn't shared it with anybody, I would have been beside myself. That was really, really cool.
Yeah, it was a neat moment.
So tonight's topic, when you're thinking about starting flight training, but don't know when or if you can, our guest is Laura. Laura and I and her husband met at our synagogue, and she made it known to me that she had found out that I was a pilot. I'm not sure if I was the one that told her.
Probably, how could she have learned?
Yeah.
I think actually you mentioned it to my husband, Ben, and he passed the news along and was like, okay, I definitely have to meet Ben now.
Okay.
This
Ben,
not my husband, Ben.
Yes.
Then that can get confusing. But, at the time when she first mentioned it to me, I was like, golly, my situation was completely different. I had it fall in my lap. What is someone who is early in their professional career and is, probably very busy, what should they do? And I tried to help out. I mentioned a couple of flying clubs that was maybe within a budget. And I think I also mentioned the 99s, which I think, but we can get into that in a minute. But it did kind of spur when we started talking about this topic. I was like, Laura is in that right now. She is in this situation. And I thought it would be great to bring her on. And, let's go with that. So, Brian, why don't you kick us off? Because I think you had some questions you wanted to get out early on.
Well, I do, but Laura, first, I just wanted to ask, for those of us that are uninitiated into the magic of your universe, tell us a little bit about yourself in terms of where you are and what you're hoping to achieve.
Yeah, I am in Marietta, Georgia, and I think I'll kind of speak a little bit more about the flying part of things. And a couple of years ago, my neighbor lives 2 houses down, and he's a pilot. And he was like, "Hey, send a group text out to the rest of the neighbors. Hey, who wants to come flying?" And I'm like, "Oh, I would love to come flying. Like, wanna." It's something I never really thought about growing up of like that people just like fly as a hobby. And it never crossed my mind. So he brought me along and showed me like the checklist and everything that you go through and really just like walked me through each of the steps. But it's really once you get up in the air and you see that view that you're like, this is awesome.
Mm.
And it kind of caught the bug from there. So kind of what brought me or sparked that interest in aviation. And so it's just kind of grown more and more from there. So definitely, like you guys are mentioning, very early on in the process here of making that commitment to start the schooling process to get my private pilot's license.
And so, and have you done a discovery flight? Are you in the middle of training, or tell us where you are at all? It's just the idea.
Yeah. I haven't done a discovery flight.
Hmm.
Definitely would love to.
Yeah.
But have been on like a couple of flights and one with Ben and then with my neighbor and really just kind of getting to get that exposure to it
Yeah.
that way in a more one-on-one setting has been awesome.
Well,
Um,
what I was going to say is just that you're already so ahead of the curve in so many ways by recognizing that you have these folks around you and being able to take advantage of that without even necessarily putting up the money yet for anything other than maybe helping somebody out with some fuel or whatever. But I think where you are is such an interesting place because I remember what it felt like for me when I was where you are, but I didn't have people taking me for rides. I didn't have anybody else to talk to. All that being said, I was taking in whatever I could, YouTube or just anything. And there's something about just something kind of heavy about making the decision in the first place because you only know it's kind of like buying your first house or something. It's like yes, this is going to cost money and this is going to require maintenance and things, but you just don't really know until you get into it. And then 2 years later, you're like, we're going to encapsulate the crawl space because the mildew is, or whatever, right? Like you just get really into it. So I guess what I'm interested in is just from almost like a psychology standpoint with you is, have you made the turn in your mind yet that this is happening? And without you having, it seems like a crazy thing, right? To start even just envisioning yourself as a person that is going to fly a plane, because even when you fly with other people or you do a discovery flight, it's so overwhelming just from an observational standpoint. It's like there are so many things going on, and it can be very jarring and it can be almost off-putting to those that are kind of on the fence about it. It might be all they need to kind of keep from doing it. But I'm curious about the psychology of that sort of turn in your mind.
yeah, and I think what you said really kind of hits the nail on the head a bit of it. It is a heavy decision. And for me, what I did was doing a lot of research online and talking to Ben and my neighbor, just kind of getting their feedback and their experience on their recommendations on different paths that are um, available and whatnot, and really thinking about what's going to be best for me. And obviously, the financial piece is definitely a piece to consider. So it was a conversation me and my husband had, and just kind of really keeping in mind like the passion for it of how badly I want it and like how much I just want to be able to just fly that plane myself in the air.
Yeah.
I really wanted that. And so the thing that really kind of then pushed me over, because I think it was definitely like, okay, yep, we have the idea sitting there and sounds great, and you're just thinking about it. But it's another thing to like kind of make that commitment of like, okay, like for the route I'm going, I'm joining a flying club and going that route. So for me, that turning point was like sending in the application. And so I had kind of set a timeline for myself of like, okay, by this date, I'm having it sent in, because otherwise, if I don't have that kind of bit of pressure, then it's not going to happen and it'll just keep getting delayed. So I had that date in mind and I made the deadline, like my internal deadline, to send in the application. So hopefully I'll hear back soon and get the process rolling even further.
Yeah, that's a big step.
Yeah.
What do you see yourself doing? Let's say after training is over. What types of things do you see yourself doing in a plane?
Yeah, I think part of me is like, oh, I could fly up to my parents' house, but they live all the way in New Jersey, so it's like maybe from a cost standpoint that doesn't quite make sense, but something to think about down the road. But I think just the opportunity to be able to fly kind of when maybe it's been like a stressful day at work, and just kind of the relaxation I feel, not even as a pilot already in the air, being able to have that at my disposal for myself as kind of a coping mechanism, if you will, would be absolutely wonderful. And being able to fly to different small airports in the area and see different parts of Georgia or nearby states that like I wouldn't normally go to see, being able to kind of have those different adventures would something I would love to share with friends and my husband and whatnot.
Yeah, I think it's good to have that in mind, which is, uh, a lot of the flying you're doing is air therapy. It's staying local. It's going to the next field over, things like that. Not oh, I'm going to commute from Atlanta to Kansas City every week. Kind of having something practical in mind like that.
I think once you start, the world just seems to get wider and wider as you step further and further into it. There's an Instagrammer that I follow, Fly Me to the Fun. It's husband and wife. They have a Cessna 150, which you could probably buy one for $50,000, and they fly that thing all over the place. They've flown it down to Turks and Caicos, so it's flying your plane to New Jersey is actually not that big of a stretch. It may take you a day or a day and a half to get there, but to me, that's part of the adventure. And I think as you start going through this, you'll start seeing that it's a wider world. The one thing I wanted to ask is have you, what other, I think we briefly talked about the 99s. Have you looked into that very much?
I looked into it briefly. I definitely want to look into it more. Um, but it's definitely a good resource from what I have seen for, especially for female pilots. So definitely want to look into that more just to kind of continue to kind of build my pilot network, and have that support and see what other female pilots have gone through. And just, I think that network is absolutely like so incredibly valuable. So I'm hoping to learn a bit more about that.
Well, so I have a question about mindset and sort of visualization. Do you think, from where you're sitting right now with what you have taken in so far, do you think, maybe the best way to ask is to say, you knowing yourself and then you knowing where you are in this early stage, what do you think are going to be the things that you do well as a pilot, and what do you anticipate maybe learning or picking up rather quickly just from the observations that you have? And then what are the things that maybe you see that you believe might be challenging or a little nerve-wracking or whatever, something maybe not as easy?
Yeah. It's kind of hard to answer the what I think I'll do well, not having had much experience. But I think just kind of when things are going well, I think I'll do great. When the plane is level, there's not too much turbulence, I think that'll be fine. I think I'll do well with that. The part I'm definitely nervous for is kind of learning about for those scenarios when things don't go well, and if there's an issue, how to resolve that issue, like keeping that mentality of keeping calm. I noticed kind of recently, now that I'm thinking about it, just I can stay kind of calm in those scenarios of things are getting a little scary, but I need to remain calm and tackle the issue. But it's the how to tackle the issue and especially as I'm learning that. It's one thing, like, for example, what was happening here, we had a water leak and I had to quickly like figure out how to like get the water shut off and take care of that. Flying a plane is very different. So it's being able to learn to stay calm and know what I need to do to correct the situation.
It's funny you mentioned that. I recently had a similar situation at my house, and I can tell you, with my now nearing 500 hours of piloting command experience, it gave me no advantage whatsoever in handling a simple homebound emergency situation. And I have people that also live here that can vouch for that. But I think you'll do better. There is something about just when the stakes are that high, you fall back on your training, and I think that you'll be getting so much of that you'll start to see that. But it is good to know, right? Like that you do think that you handle situations well, and when the stakes get higher, I think that's maybe a little kind of concerning. But just newsflash, you're going to be trained so much that it's almost just going to be. It doesn't mean you're not concerned about these things, but it's a different type of feeling than the, oh my gosh, like what am I going to do? Because all of the gulf of that you're feeling right now is going to be filled with training. So
I can tell you, having her sit in the right seat of the beast and having her husband in the back, she can
Asleep.
absolutely hold a heading and an altitude, climb and descend to an altitude. So if she can do that in the beast, 172 should be pretty easy.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. Well, and just one quick follow up. Now, when it comes to what do you see yourself as a person that in other areas of your life would maybe benefit from this type of training? Is this a particular discipline or structure that maybe you don't have, or is it something that maybe it fits right in with what your life path has been so far? Maybe you're a person that has always sort of done curriculum based things and followed requirements documents, or whatever, and then to a particular end. Whereas maybe somebody like me, I've been sort of freestyling life for so long. Me getting my private pilot certificate was kind of the first sanctioned thing beyond my high school diploma that I ever accomplished in my life. So it was the challenge for me was the fact that it isn't in this abstract. So I was just curious about how you might see that going for you.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested to see for myself as well, because going through high school and college, like I did all right. I did well in high school. College was a little trickier, but it's been a couple of years now since I've been in college, and so I'm interested to kind of see for myself, like how at this stage of my life, how I learn, and if it's different from how I've learned in the past, or if it's the same. I think the one thing that I do have going for me is that I have the passion there. Because in college, you're taking gen ed classes you may not necessarily care about. It's a lot harder for me to want to put in the effort to do well in those kinds of courses. So for this, I feel like I'm going to do well because I have that passion there and that want and the desire to do well. Because at the end of the day, I'm flying a plane. I want to make sure I have that knowledge and I have that sunken into my brain to make sure I'm keeping myself and any passenger safe.
Yeah, general ed is not life or death. So there's a different
different stakes here.
I can tell you my motto in college and high school for that matter was 2-0 and go. My education in aviation, I studied harder than I ever had in my entire lifetime because of the passion, just exactly what you're speaking of.
Yeah,
right.
This actually matters. You're actually interested in this. Yeah,
right.
Yes.
I'm gonna go back and roll through a couple of the comments that we got that were great. Biff was talking about how you sent in your application for the flying club, and he said if you have a flying club available, that's a huge advantage. Totally is. And Cheryl said Laura is already way ahead of where I was when I took the plunge. Nice. So that's great. Oh, AJ also said, hopefully your husband understands that he's now the second most important thing in your life. And he came back in the comments and said, No, the pups are already here. So apparently he's going to be the third most important thing behind the pups and the
I
plane.
want to jump in real quick. Laura, the flying club that you applied to, Alpha Juliet in the chat is a very prominent member in said flying club. So I'll definitely make an introduction. And I think he knows your friend down the street from you. You want to talk
Okay.
about a small world.
That may not be an advantage if you say you know AJ.
It may not be. You're right.
There's also some comments about the practical things. Banjo Pilot talks about doing a self-study or an online ground school to get started. Totally agree. That's great. You can go to episode 42 of the podcast where we talk about those first couple steps as you're getting into it, the more practical things. This is really about what comes before that.
Yeah. And there was one other comment. Now I can't find where it was that I was going to bring up, but I agree with what's being said in that when you set a deadline for something, that you put pressure on yourself to make sure that happens. And so you've done that. And I think that's a very effective way to put yourself and move it forward. There was I love this YouTuber. It's Airplane Academy. Charlie Gassmeyer just released a video. And he is talking about this very thing. And it's taking that first step, basically getting off your couch and taking that first step. And I felt like it resonated very well with what we're talking about tonight.
That'll be in the doobly-doo, but the title is Become a Pilot Before It's Too Late. Here's why. So
I felt when I saw that video come out, whatever it was, 3 days ago or so, my first thought was, does he have access to our spreadsheet? Because he completely nailed it. And one of the things that he mentioned that I'd like to also mention is there's a lot of people, and this was really geared, there's a lot of people that really want to do this. There's a lot of people that, despite how much they want to do this, they don't have a network around them. They don't have neighbors that are flying planes. They don't have a flying club that they can join. They don't have immediate access to an international audience on a midlife pilot podcast.
There are dozens of us.
No, and I don't mean this to be, sort of diminutive towards, or diminish anything about your luck is made, right? And you've put yourself in this situation. And so I'm not lamenting that, but I guess I really also want to speak to the people that are listening, because I know that we have some people that listen that are in this spot. I don't have the money. I don't have the time. I love it. I will try to immerse myself in anything I can about it. I'm an enthusiast, and, they enjoy the podcast because it kind of keeps them at least kind of close to it. So that would be the really first thing that I think Charlie suggested in his video, and similar to us here is, definitely listen to podcasts, definitely do any little thing that you can to stay proximate to that world. Make a trip to the airport and, go watch planes. Do any number of things small that are not about turning up the gas on your bank account and burning the whole thing down. You don't have to be doing that. If you can take even just a few minutes a week and look at some ground school videos, or just absolutely anything, just make whatever progress that you can. And every bit of it does help and is a direction, and it's a manifestation, I think, of your intention. So even when you are not in a spot where you can be immediately pursuant to this, I know we had people at the fly-in that were not pilots that just love it and they would love to do it, but it's not in the cards for them right now with the way that their life is, but they are joining us and going on flying adventures and, whatever. So I just really want to speak to the folks that are not in a position to do this yet, and just say, do any little thing that you can if it's something that you love, and keep your keep your eyes on it and keep focused on it. It will grow over time, and a direction will come. Laura, what would you say to somebody who's in that spot where they're, even though you haven't taken a discovery flight or your first lesson, you are further down the road than some of what these people can even imagine being, right? And so what would you say to those that don't have your level of experience yet?
I think it's a lot of what you were saying of keeping close to it and keeping it involved in your life. Like, it was actually, I was just thinking about how, like, eventually me and my husband want to start a family, and it could very well conflict with my training process. And so even when we have kids, I want to make sure that that's not going to hold me back from, like, staying involved with it to some degree. Like, I'd even mentioned one day that, like, I would love to just go and watch the planes fly. Like, I love it when I have to drive them down to the airport because I get to see the planes fly, and it just makes me happy. So, like, yeah, I think what you're saying was great advice of just staying close to it as much as you can. And I'm sure there might be local resources as well to the viewers of different ways they can get involved without kind of putting all the money into it. But yes, keeping it in your life is, if it's important to you, then you'll invest that time and energy to it, whether it's what you want it to be of going for your pilot's license or just having aviation be a part of your life.
Well, and I really like that you've been able to get rides, and that's something that I think a lot of people don't realize is really easy to do. Most of us are out there flying alone, and would be happy to have somebody in the plane with us. And you know, so it's not about, hey, pay for the gas. It's, man, please come along. And what a great way to get some experience in a plane like that, and to get that teaser and know if you really like it.
Absolutely.
Well, I would like to read, it's a rather long feedback email, but I'm going to blaze through it if you guys are okay with that. Laura, are you okay on time?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Because we'll just stop the whole show right now. Like, if this doesn't, no, but this is from our friend Biff. And by the way, it was such a pleasure to meet and hang out with Biff at the Nashville Fly-In. We give a heads up in our Discord about things that we're going to be talking about, and it gives folks a chance to think about it and say what they think. And a lot of our feedback comes through there or gets mailed to us. And I thought that we all thought that this was a particularly good one. So I'm just going to get into it. You guys ready?
Let's go.
All right. From Biff, he says, for me, the process of actually becoming a pilot seemed like a huge pipe dream and not something a regular human could do, especially at midlife when already entrenched in life, family, and career. This feeling did not really go away, even through several milestones in the process. So advice that may work for some, oddly enough, is don't worry about the end goal. Just chip away and go as far as you want to. If you are passionate and curious about aviation, which obviously you are, you would not be hearing these words, just start the journey and go as far as you want. My journey began that way because I started never expecting to actually become a quote unquote real pilot. I just wanted to learn about flying. I started with the academic part, researched various online schools, and jumped in. I became addicted to the learning process as I began to peel back the onion layers of various aviation topics. I had not studied in years, and it was both challenging and fun. When topics became too difficult, YouTube was an amazing resource, and I would go through phases of, I'll never understand what they are talking about, to now I do, and on to the next. I took the written test expecting that may be the end of the experience for me, and then figured I would take a few lessons in the air. Still assuming finishing was still an insurmountable goal, I kept going back. It was hard. I continued to hit moments when I thought I will never be able to do X or Y, and then I did, and it was on to the next one. My point in all of this, and what may be unusual advice, is don't worry about the end goal. Just start and go as far as you want. And yes, money, time, stress will be involved, but do not overplan. Just jump in and see where the journey takes you. Everyone is different. You may or may not finish, but you still will have an amazing, life-changing experience. You also likely may finish, and that's amazing. Second to the above point, and what may seem contrary to what I said above, do lots of research. There are tons of resources available on YouTube and similar platforms. Pick a ground school method that works for you, in person, online, etc. Research flight schools in your area. Talk to students and CFIs. Take a few lessons and find a supportive CFI. They are in charge of the airplane, but you are the ultimate boss, and you are fully entitled to work with someone with whom you gel. You are allowed to drop one CFI and go with another. If they are truly professional, they will expect this because their ultimate goal is to teach you. And if that means with a different instructor, then so be it. Another factor to consider is the type of airport where you train. I had the choice between a towered 6,500-foot runway or an untowered 2,600-foot runway, and I picked the latter, figuring I would learn radio and towered ops regardless. So I wanted to learn to land on a smaller runway, hopefully making me a better stick and rudder pilot. You may feel different, and that's okay. Everybody's journey is different. So do your research, dive in, and pick the best route for you. Don't focus on the end goal, and just start and chip away as you are able. Either way, the rewards will last a lifetime. Thank you, Biff. That was perfectly said.
Yeah.
Laura, what do you think about all that?
Absolutely. Like, research was definitely a huge part of it for me to kind of understand more about the process overall and what different options are available. So that's definitely a crucial piece. But then kind of what he's saying as well, like, just you got to start somewhere and see how far you get and go from there. So I really like that advice.
Yeah. Kind of don't go too far ahead.
Right.
What's amazing to me is that once I kind of broke into the community, and when I say broke into the community, I mean had already started my training.
I thought you meant you jimmied the locks on Kenny's plane.
The amount of support that came my way and that comes to everybody in our community's way, everybody wants to see you succeed. We love it. And then, but it's not the pressure. Success doesn't mean getting your private pilot certificate. Your success means taking that step that you're trying to take and completing it, whatever that may be. And there are just so many people in the community. Once you find that community, and it's really not that hard. You really just have to kind of open up your eyes and take a step into it. But I mean, I can already tell with what you've told us tonight that you're starting to see a lot of it. You're flying with different people. My feelings aren't hurt. I thought it was the only pilot you wanted to fly with, but that's okay. I'll just take Ben up next time. And no, I'm just teasing.
That hurts. That hurts.
No, I'm just teasing. You know better than that. But my point is that you in a lot of ways, what everybody's saying in the chat, you are already a long way down the road, and that's just finding that community, because the community is going to help you find a way to get it done. I think that's what I'm trying to get at. There's one point that a couple of people in the chat have mentioned, and it's about getting your medical. I agree that you do need to think about getting your medical, but somebody had mentioned you can actually get a consult before you actually do get the medical, just to see if there's any gotchas that could pop up. So that's it. Get a consultation before going for the medical. It was a barrier for me. I had to wait. I got deferred for almost 6 months, and I was ready to solo. So that added a significant expense to my training.
Well, I want to say too that I understand that we're not talking about the medical and all these things on this particular episode, but that's not our focus really for this episode. And we've covered, Ted, I don't know which episode it is, or there's at least 2 episodes where we've really gone through our point of view on what it's like to get started from a midlife pilot perspective, and obviously, the older you are,
I just wanted to address the chat. That's all. Just to
no,
let,
no,
we're
I
not
totally
thinking
get it.
about it, but that's not the focus
I'm
of this
speaking
episode.
sort of to the chat, I guess,
Yeah.
is to say like, hey, I understand, and that's 100% valid advice. Don't do anything. Do not pass go until you've got a medical, and then you really know what you're doing. Because even if someone said, like even if you're going to go for a sport pilot, there are steps you can take in the wrong direction early on that would negate that potential for you. So there are things there. I'm really talking about before you even get started. How can you get started and not really truly be started? And how do you stay near, or at least aimed in the direction? So perhaps, yes, just keep an ear out for anything you see online about what you should know about your medical. Go to the AOPA website. We've got all the episodes talking about this, but we are not somebody you should trust about anything. We have no idea what we're talking about. So go to somebody that has more 3-letter acronyms behind their name. Even DDS, right? Like just anything, right, will be better than
Would be better than us.
yeah. So
we all have BS for a reason. Yeah.
It's and reach out to the community that you met. Reach out to me. Reach out to your neighbor down the street. You told me his name, and I'm trying to come up with it now. But what are some great ground schools? Not that you have to sign up for it, but for example, Flight Insight has a lot of YouTube videos that are free that you could go out there and watch. That keeping you close to that aviation community. There are so many different ways to do that. So
now, Laura, I want to ask you something that might be, a little esoteric, okay? But have you visualized yourself flying in an airplane by yourself?
Yeah, sometimes I have.
See?
That's awesome.
I just wanted to stress, or at least highlight in some way, that visualizing it is taking a step in the towards your 0 hours of experience. And I think that that's huge. You're gonna rely on that visualization later on, because that's the stuff of the dream. And when you get to the point where you've actually begun your training and you're getting to that point where it's getting hard, it's challenging, right? You're going to have moments of doubt, because everybody here, there's nobody here that did not have a moment of doubt. And so you have to fall back on something when you have those moments of doubt, and you don't have, it's hard to listen to the people around you when you're having those moments of doubt. It's hard to listen to an instructor that you're paying to say, you're going to be fine. Or, of course you think I'm going to be fine. You're making, money off of me or whatever. I don't know. But it's like, you'll find any reason to not trust the voices around you. It really comes down to the voice in your head. And I think that for me, there was just something about the stuff of the dream is that visualization. So I would say continue to do that. I'm glad that you do that. Think about it even more deeply. I'm not going to get to the point where I'm going to start doing a stopwatch back here, guys, but it's like, but it's something to that effect, right? Like, I sit there and just, when you do visualize it, visualize yourself landing the plane and being pleased with, the result, or visualize yourself, veering around a cloud, or visualize yourself, with something happening that's some sort of an emergency, and visualize yourself handling that emergency confidently and getting through it. Anything you can do from the space of visualization, I really, really think is a powerful tool that will help you later on. So I'm glad to hear that you've done that, Laura.
One quick point on that, just as a quick follow-up. I did visualize before I started training, but after you've gone up in the air, and maybe this is what spurred it, but after you start your training, that visualization, I mean, it was almost air therapy for me. When I would get to a point in my training that was difficult, I would close my eyes and I would just put myself in the seat. And when it was an easy time, when I'm just flying straight and level, whatever. But that, I agree with you, Brian, that picturing yourself in that end goal is a big part of it.
Will you read Biff's comment?
Yeah, I've got to read Biff's comment. You know, we were talking about the medicals, and Brian was talking about listening to that voice in your head. And Biff says, "Do not mention the voices in your head to the AME." Yes, yes. Why are you flying? Because the voices told me to. Not a good answer.
Probably not a good answer. I wanted to call out Nick Reagan's comment. Perfect advice for me. Got to just do what you can, but getting started is the first goal.
Yeah.
As it's often said, showing up is half the battle. So I couldn't agree with that more.
Yeah. So good.
So, Laura, what questions do you have of us knuckleheads, I should say? Any? Put you on the spot.
I mean, yeah, any kind of advice that you have as I kind of have started this journey and are making those next steps, and any advice that, like, kind of putting yourselves in my position, what advice you would tell yourself at like this point in the journey?
So I'll go first. Scour the YouTube world. You'll see some stuff. It's going to be a shameless plug, but the guy that is to your right, Mr. Siskin, has a lot of, there you go, him. He's got a lot of great videos, and the OG Chris Moran also about learning to fly. There's so much out there. But yeah, just you're already kind of doing everything that I would recommend, expanding your network. I can introduce you to other CFIs. You've already made your application to the flying club there, and start going to their meetings. There's just so much that you're already doing. It's kind of hard for me to even suggest. I will say it's an open invitation for you and Ben. I still want to take y'all down to Peach State. I think I could get Ben interested a little bit more when he has a more fun destination to go to. Ben is her husband, by the way, not me, and is an awesome guy. Love hanging out with them both. So, but we'll find some time for that.
And you know, Cheryl is one of the people that's in the comments here, and that's in our Discord, and she's a good example of someone who is a woman who was interested in flying, whose husband wasn't terribly interested. And it is more rare, but they exist. And that's part of the advantage of 99s, is not being surrounded by us. You can see more than just dudes there.
And one other thing, if you do go down some YouTube wormholes, you'll get a better sense of this over time, but certain things are good information and certain things are less good information. You consume wisely. But a couple of people I want to shout out that I think would be great for you to follow. One, and both of them are female CFIs, if not further, and both have children and have done this and are doing it. So one would be our friend Erica Gilbert Aviation. She has a channel called AeroSafe. We shouted out pretty much every episode for some reason or another, it seems like. So she's not paying us.
Because she's awesome, that's why.
I think I'll link to her video talking about her son, because that was a kind of a great aviation and life video.
Yeah. And she was also on our podcast with her son. So just to see proof of concept, right? Because that's a huge thing that you are weighing your future out in contrast with. And those are just great. She's just a great example of somebody that has, kept on that path, which, by the way, side note, we had some crazy weather coming through here this past week and through Kentucky and Tennessee, and Erica's based out of Kentucky, and I texted her and I said, will you please change or fix the weather? Her specialty, Laura, is weather, really, as you'll see on her channel, which is a great thing for you to start learning and observing now more acutely, by the way. And through the lens of her videos, it'll really help you. and you'll never be good enough at understanding weather.
Oh yeah.
But yes, I asked Erica if she could please stop doing whatever she was doing or change it, and she replied that she was in the Bahamas. And I was just like, oh, well, great. So you don't even care what's going on over here. No, but yeah, Erica's great. And then also there's a YouTube channel, I believe, that still exists. Another CFI, her name is Pilot Pam. She goes by Pilot Pam. Check out Pilot Pam. I really like her videos, and she flies around with, you know, little ones and such. And it's pretty neat to see. So, you know, I just would like for anybody to start looking at, you know, the things, you know, you're trying to harmonize this with your life. Everybody's figured it out at some point in some way. Like there's always going to be somebody that's done it. So that's a really cool thing. So yes, weather. I don't even know why I didn't even think about that. That is a huge thing. Oh, Pilot Pam's channel's been deleted. No. Loved Pilot Pam. Her videos were really great. Well, okay, we retract that, and Ted, that's one less thing you have to put in the show notes.
My show notes list can get a little shorter. So, you know, when we want to get some sage advice, we always go to the comments and go to AJ. So AJ was wondering what your dream goal is.
Yeah.
Career, recreation.
Yeah, more just, I think, for myself. I don't know if I would go the route of going commercial, making that a career, but I mean, who knows? Could get into it and be like, that's what I want to do. But for right now, the goal is to just have the private pilot's license for myself and to share with family and friends, and to kind of be able to embed myself more into the community of pilots. So getting to fully understand all the pilot talk with Ben and with my neighbor and whatnot, being able to have that in common with other people would be really cool. So yeah, just definitely for myself for sure.
Yeah, I think that it's also easier once you get into it to decide what your specialty is and or what you're most interested in. So, but it's all in front of you now. It's great. Yeah.
We're gonna expect to hear from you on a regular basis on steps that are being taken. Need to get you on the Discord server and have you involved with that. I do want to give a couple of shout outs to some of our Discord members. Speaking of which, first, shout out to Zeb, who did his first solo flight. So congratulations. That's a awesome deal.
After being medically grounded for quite a while, we'll read some feedback on that next week.
Awesome.
And then a super special shout out to our friend Nathan Ballard. Definitely a friend of the show. Has been on several times. Nate just passed his ATP certificate.
Yeah. Wow.
That's next level there. So we're very excited and very proud of you both, and keep it going. So that's going to about do it for us tonight. We'll not tease the next episode too much. Stuff's happening, but it'll be fun stuff. And just a quick reminder, join us on Patreon. You can send us a PayPal drop, or you can contact us at midlifepilotpodcast.com. Anything else for the good of the order, Laura, Brian, or Chris, or Ted?
Thank you guys so much for having me on. I really appreciate it, and was happy to be a part of it and get to kind of virtually meet some people in the comments here. So thank you guys so much for having me on.
Of course.
It's been a blast.
Yeah,
We've enjoyed it as well. Closing out episode 77 of the Midlife Pilot Podcast. Good night, everybody.